There you go.
Okay.
Perfect. Let's all go ahead and get started. So last week we went over metaprograms, and it was an awesome session, I would say, and even more so for me as I kept seeing these over and over again in my life, especially last week. It was wild. What was your guys' experiences?
We actually, on Thursday night, we had Robert apparently watched the video and he had some questions about it. So it came up in discussion Thursday night. And actually, I've been thinking about something that Valerie said. So at some point, I'm going to ask you a question about that, Valerie.
Yeah, I figured.
Are you saying I ask a lot of questions?
No, I'm saying I inspire questions.
Love the reframe. Excellent.
Go for it, Stephen. What do you got?
Okay. So when we were talking about Sean's six-pack experience with his gym buddy, and he talked about how when he got there, and it was a 2 strategy, right? To get the six-packs was a toward strategy. Then he realized, and correct me if I'm not getting it quite right, Sean, but the prominence of that goal changed for you. You realized you needed to think about it differently. So you changed it into a not losing the six-pack, and you made it essentially an away from not losing the six-pack. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd take it a step further and say that essentially it was a toward strategy, got the six-pack, but how did I know I had the six-pack? So that was a convincer strategy. And so the way that it looked, the way that it felt, the convincer strategy was met. Then I knew I had it. And now that I have it, I don't want to lose it. So there's just a little added piece in there for you.
Okay. So when we were having that conversation, I asked the question, couldn't you also have looked at it differently and kept it as a 2 strategy? You know, now it's moving towards some bigger, a Milton model chunk up. What was it that the six-pack was really about? Was it really just about a six-pack, or was it about feeling better, being more attractive to women, who knows, whatever, but some kind of progression of that goal and keep it as a moving towards. And Valerie suggested that if she had tried to do something like that, it wouldn't feel authentic. Is that accurate, Valerie?
If I tried to do what?
If you had tried to reframe it basically as the six-pack wasn't really about a six-pack, but it was about being able to wear smaller clothes or feeling better about yourself or being more attractive to women or something like that. I mean, in Sean's case. But
Okay.
do you remember that part of the conversation?
It sounds like something I'd say.
Well, the more I thought about it, because my first question was, why would that feel inauthentic to you? This might be a harder conversation to have if you don't clearly remember it. But the more I thought about it, then I realized that no matter what happened, it's been reframed, right? The six-pack was a toward strategy. Then it went to a convincer strategy. He was convinced that he had it. And so now he had to reframe it. And it wasn't about accomplishing it. It was about not losing it. And so my question was, but then it became an away from strategy, according to Sean. My question was, and I'm changing the way I said it from last week, but if you're reframing it, if you're re-understanding what your goal is, why would it be any less authentic to change your toward strategy to an away strategy versus just changing it, keeping it towards strategy and making it some higher purpose, seeing the six pack as part of a higher purpose.
I don't know that I object to having it evolve into a higher purpose. I would agree with, I could see the value of making it representative of something more than just a particular, physical attribute. But I'm not sure that I would say it's the same thing as it was at the beginning.
I agree.
That's what was going through my mind when I used
Okay.
the word inauthentic. I'm not saying it's not in alignment or not a natural evolution. I think our brains can play tricks on us like that, or we can psych ourselves out or change. But I don't know. Is it still the same thing?
No, it's not, but it's been one of my realizations through the week and thinking about it is that Sean's already reframed it. It's no longer the same thing regardless. So he had been using a towards strategy. I moved to an away strategy instead of keeping it in a towards strategy.
Well, I don't want to, I mean, Sean, I'm not speaking for you, Sean, but when I think about like it staying as a move towards strategy, in my mind, and maybe limited, I would think it would have to become an 8-pack, not a 6-pack. That would be moving toward the same thing, even though that's not really the same thing either.
That's exactly how I saw it too.
Interesting.
There you go.
Like another step. In this, it's like a goal that's accomplished, and I don't want to keep going after the same goal, if that makes sense. Like, okay, I climbed the mountain. I want to keep still climbing another mountain. No, I'm kind of good. But to Stephen's point, you go and look and find for another mountain to climb.
Yeah, I mean, clearly it was an accomplished goal, and there's a lot of sort of psychic reward to recognizing that you've accomplished that, and that's a good thing all on its own.
Yeah, and I think the difference for me and you in here, with your great towards strategy, is that you go look to find another mountain to climb, and me, I'm just kind of relaxing and chilling on the mountain, making sure that I don't fall off the mountain.
That's helpful. Yeah, thank you.
And so it's like, why would I want to? And so part of the problem is that I probably should go and climb another mountain. And so I'm going away from not climbing another mountain in that respect. At least if I compartmentalize it and put it in physical fitness, like I'm good on physical fitness, like nowhere really to go there. Like I've achieved the highest mountain that I want to achieve there. I just want to kind of stay content there for a little while.
Yeah, that makes sense. That answers my question. Thank you, both of you.
Barb, what did you see this week, just through Metaprograms and everything we discussed and all that?
I'll be honest, I had so much going on at work that I didn't even pay attention to people's Metaprograms.
Okay. Would that be yours and you're moving away from?
No, actually.
Good question.
I was shaking my head yes, so I thought you were saying yes to that. You're answering the question for me. I didn't know. No, it was. No, it had nothing to do with my moving away from. In fact, if I go back and think about it, we had a situation, and in talking to somebody else about, we needed to get some information on who in the company is going to take care of things that our boss normally does because he's out for a while. And so in that discussion, we were both moving toward, our whole discussion was about moving toward finding the solution for who's going to cover for him while he's out so that we can continue to do our jobs and get projects and things completed while he's gone.
Okay. What
So-
happens if you didn't do that together?
I think we probably would have both had it separately.
Okay.
We probably both would have been separate. She's a very, now that I think about her, in this context, she's a very move towards person.
And when you have this accomplished, what is you and your company have?
Congruency.
Right. Yeah, it's exactly right, Becky. Congruency. Because it's congruency with people outside the company that we work with.
Did you
Go
guys
ahead.
see what I did there? Because I wanted to test Barb in that, because I wanted to see what her going away and going towards scenarios were there. And so it truly was a going towards strategy. When I asked her the going away question, what would you guys lose if you didn't do this? It took her a minute. She had to go and find it. But when I asked her the going towards, she knew exactly, and that's what the inspiring direction was. So that's how to test for it.
Clever man you are.
Sylvia, how was your week?
It's been fine. I just, I have a question. Going back to your six pack.
Okay.
If you get to that point and you've got your six pack, why do you have to move away from it or towards it? Or why can't you just do an accomplishment strategy? Why, can't you put a little star somewhere or a ribbon or something that you've made that? And then, because you're talking about you just want to relax a little bit and then start another goal instead of climbing another mountain. You said something last week that I just wanted to go over, because you said to me, and it was so sad, you said, I'll never have a new car. If you had, at the end of that book that you gave me, of money strategies, okay? Once you've got that money, you can buy a brand new car. You can buy what you want. But it's like, I didn't hear that in your voice. It was like, I'll never have a new car. But that's not true, So when you look at these things in a different mode of, yes, I may be living poor right now, or I may be living, saving my money, I'll eventually get there where I can buy.
Okay, question for you.
He bought a Jaguar. That guy did. He did. He bought a Jag.
Question for you.
Yes.
When you look at me, what do I want when I say that I'll never have a new car?
I think you're living right now according to accomplishing yourself and getting yourself out there. And I don't think that you work so much for money.
Simple
I think
life.
you work from the heart is what I see.
Sure.
Right?
And
you still have to live, but you're not that money hungry yet.
okay.
That'll come as you get older.
I can't see it.
And if we put this like car thing in like a box, say I'm going out and gonna get a car, or I'm looking at acquiring a car, and I say to you, maybe it's not even me, somebody says to you, I'm never gonna have a new car. What do they want?
They want something else instead.
Okay.
They're living according to their means right now. They're living according to how, by their means.
Okay. And the skill that I want to challenge you towards is, am I going towards something or am I going away from something?
No, you're going towards something.
You think so?
Yes, because the car thing is not a big thing to you. The brand new car thing isn't a big thing to you. It was in your voice. It was like, I'll never have a new car. But it's coming. It will come later on down the line. You'll have a new car. But it's not a big thing on your list, on your bucket list.
Well,
exactly.
so Sylvia,
Things don't break down, that kind of stuff. But yeah.
I have a question for you, Sylvia.
Yes.
It sounds like you're contradicting yourself. In other words, you're recognizing in one hand that it's not a big deal for Sean, but at the same time, you're encouraging him that it will come.
Yes,
but there are lots of different ways to look at, and I think this is part of the point that Sean's trying to point out. There are so many different ways to look at the idea of buying a new car. There are a lot of people that I know that make lots and lots and lots of money,
Mhm.
but they also like to be financially efficient. And you can make an argument that the first couple years of a brand new car, there's a lot of depreciation. It's not
Oh,
financially.
I agree with you. I agree. I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you. We're actually talking about a book. What's his name, Sean?
Oh, the Dave Ramsey book.
Dave Ramsey book. And finally, at the end, he has so much money. He's like 65 now. He has enough money, more than enough money, and so he can buy a new car if he wants to, and he doesn't care about that, the depreciation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he has saved and scrimped and done all this stuff his whole life to get to where he is, so that he can just go out and do whatever he wants to. That's what we're talking about. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leave you in the.
And you're totally right on that. And there's an added level to it. So if we were to just break this down, and I'm going to show you my map of the world here. And if you put car in one just like column, this is what I think about cars and those kind of things. When I'm looking at that and you say that a new car is going to come, it's going to come soon. Those are all
No, not soon. Not for you.
Or
It'll
eventually.
come way later.
or way later, right?
Uh-huh.
When you say all those things, those are toward strategies.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, there's a great miss in rapport with that. Because what I'm thinking is you're saying going towards. And for me, I'm going away. And it's not the new car that I'm going away from, but I'm going away from payments. I'm going away from debt. I'm going away from the depreciation and value. And so it's a subtle and tiny difference. But it's a huge one when you're making rapport. And so if you run into somebody else and you tell them they're going to need a new car eventually, and they're going away from that,
No, I do. I understand. I do. But I just wanted to relay that to you that Dave Ramsey did buy a new car eventually, but it was way down the line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Valerie, you're weak with metaprograms?
I've been thinking a lot about how to force myself to change it. And I'm not sure that I have any insights yet into that, but I think that I'm even more in the move away from camp than even I want to admit.
Okay.
That was my post-session kind of realization.
I got a spoiler. I'm going to show us how to change them here in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So can I ask you one quick question, Valerie? Last week you had mentioned that you were more of a towards strategy at work and more of an away in your personal life.
Mm-hmm.
Are you changing that now?
No, I'm not changing it. I think that's true. I think that I have really good clarity on what I want professionally. And it's easy for me to be vocal about it, even though that's high stakes for me. So I think it's true, but I also think about the last big career change I made, which was about 6 years ago. And I decided I had 10 years professional experience in nonprofits. And I resigned from that job, and I didn't have another job when I did it. And I was job searching, and I said, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. That was a move away from.
Yeah.
And I was like, am I moving towards the for-profit world? Am I moving away from the nonprofit world? And I drove myself a little crazy this past week, dancing around that tree a little bit. And where I've landed is something that I would consider them I call them a not only for profit company. That's how I think of it. It's kind of a hybrid. It's not even, I don't know. So I think that threw some, granted that was 6 years ago. So if I was job searching now, would I do the same thing? Maybe not, but it threw some doubt. It cast some doubt for me. Before I felt very certain. I don't know. It feels messy too. I think I think there was a time personally when I was very clear and I was moving towards things. And now, I don't know.
Okay. We'll go over a little bit how to change them. I got some insight on that.
Okay.
Mom, I want to know for you, I know that you watched the recording. So how was the Metaprograms looking at those for you this week?
It's interesting for me because I do a little bit of both. I move away from certain things, and this is across the board. I mean, it's not like I move away from certain kinds of relationships and towards in business. It's like I move away from the job I hate and move towards something I want to do. So it's kind of like a combination between the two.
Okay.
I can see it both ways. I maybe it depends on what kind of mood I'm in, you know, whether the glass is half full or half empty, you know, I'm moving forward versus moving towards or away.
Perfect. I had some insights, and it was really key for me looking at these all this week. And one of the key ones that I had, it was actually probably the next day that we were on the phone. Essentially, I remembered a time when I was in college, and I had a very clear moving towards strategy. And I wanted to bring up like a dangerous one, because sometimes, or just about every time, the going towards strategy is really good strategy, as Stephen kind of demonstrated for us. It's really good for your goals. It's really good for the things you want in life, but there can be problems with it. And so when I was 21 years old, and so I had a very clear going towards strategy of meeting women and interacting with people, specifically on my campus, at social events, nightclubs, parties, those kind of things. And it was great, because what happened is that I got out of my shyness. And so I was 20 years old, and then I turned 21, and I started going out and meeting people, and I had this sociable personality. And what I learned, what I taught myself through this reinforcement, was the more social I was, the more positive benefit for me it was. The more pleasure I got, the more fun, the more people enjoyed it, and so on and on that went. And so it became a very powerful towards strategy. However, it ended when I almost got pretty much like I would have flunked out of college. And so it was me leaving classes early, me missing classes and doing all those things because I was going towards one area in my life. And what I found is that I needed to set up some kind of boundaries for that. So that's one of the very key ones that I found, and what you guys might see as well in other areas and such. What I ended up to deal with it was I set up a barrier, so some kind of like limitation, and this is what we can do when we change these. And you put this limitation, it's kind of behind you. And so what I want to show you and kind of teach you is how I changed my meta program. And so when we talked last week, I had the going away from. Essentially, I had a limitation or a set amount of money that I was going away from, or had as like enough to live, or a safety net, if that makes sense. And so, okay, I have this much money, I'm okay. And then when I didn't have that much more money, I'd have to go get more money, right? And so that's just one area of my life. It's the context for this meta program, this going away meta program that I had. And so what I did was I looked and tried to find a meta program where I have a going towards strategy. And Robert Dilts outlines this a little bit in his on encyclopedia on NLP. I think this was about the 2000 that came out. But he essentially said that you can map across a going towards strategy in one area to another area. When you do this, you also have to be really careful of the other things that are affected. So you just have to really do a good job of making everything ecological. But what I did is I looked at a towards strategy I have. My most prominent towards strategy is going and finding a wife, having a house, settling down, having kids. That's something I'm going towards. And so when I have that meta program, and you can test it, you can look and see, well, if I didn't have that, where would I be going towards? And so then I look and say that's going away from, that would be going away from loneliness, desperation, not having anybody. And so the specific procedure that I did was I mapped this out. And so I got a space in my room and I said, okay, this is where I'm here now. And I stood and I looked what I was going towards. And then I kind of outlined everything. Where would I go if I was one step forward? Okay, 2 steps forward. Where would I go if I was back where I am now, but off to the left? Okay, off to the right. And then what I did is I turned around. Okay, what's going away from? What am I going away from when I'm looking the other way? And so that's the loneliness, this desperation, all that stuff. So then I turn towards, I look at what all those things are. I actively participate in going towards, and then I visualize what the dream would be. Then I go to where I am now, and all that's just to elicit exactly that towards strategy. So that's how I do a towards strategy. Might be a little bit different for you guys, but it's all mapped out. It's clear. And I think pretty much that would be the same process for anyone. Going from there, I look at my away from strategy. And so the money strategy that I don't want to have anymore, the going away from, I look at where I am currently now. And for this one, it's at X amount of dollars. And so then I look at what happens if I go closer and closer towards that thing that I want to get away from. And then I have an understanding exactly what that's like. And then I move away from it. And this is all done in the same spatial kind of locations. Then I go to where I would be if I went all the way away from it. And then I realize how uncomfortable that would be, how off, how lost I might be at that time. And so then I go a little bit closer to that point of no return, that point that I don't want to get. And then I feel a little bit more comfortable. Then what happens is I go all the way towards that thing that I don't want, and I go all the way beyond it. So like the absolute worst case scenario, what would happen? Okay, once I have all that, I go back to where I am now, and I turn around and elicit what would happen if I did that. Then I look at what going towards would mean, where I would be going towards, actually set a goal, a dream, a location, a destination to get to. I also look and see what would happen if I stepped backwards. And so what would happen if my worst case scenario came and bit me in the butt? Would I be okay? What would happen? What would happen? What would I do? And so then we're just listing all the feelings, the emotions. Would I step forward? Would I step backwards? Would I be lost? What would happen? What's left? What's right? All those different things. And then I have a clear understanding of exactly what that away from strategy is. And then it's mapped into a towards strategy. The final step that I had to do was that if I was going to have this towards strategy, I needed some kind of protection, some kind of ability, some kind of knowing that everything was going to be okay. And so this I built in with just a reserve amount of, I have X amount of dollars. It's behind me. I'm not too concerned about it. I know it's there. It's off somewhere else, but I know that I'll be protected, and my focus can be on that goal, that dream. And so that's kind of a long-winded elicitation of how I did that. The next step was just to practice that and to really contextualize that to my life as well.
Sean, when you create a new towards strategy, how do you keep it ecological? I'm guessing that you have figured out how to do that. And the reason I say that is I'm assuming that when you were in college, you had a towards strategy in terms of getting your degree, however you thought of that exactly. And then you created a new towards strategy towards being more social, meeting more women, whatever that all was. But that second one almost killed the first one, you said.
Yeah.
So it wasn't ecological, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So thoughts on dealing with the ecology?
And so that's a great challenge. And you could visit many rehab centers in Los Angeles that I'm sure you could ask the celebrities about this one, where they have nonstop going towards strategies and it ends up biting them in the butt, or Tiger Woods, for instance. So
okay.
In the specific example I laid out for you here, it's a little bit easier for me because I know myself and what I don't want, what I do want, the goals, the directions that I have for my life overall. And I know where this specific part of my life fits in. For somebody that you might be working with, that's going to be challenging. So what you'd really have to do is find out what their greatest purpose is in life. So if that's a mom, for instance, is it to take care of the kids, raise them well, be a good wife, a good caretaker of the house? Now, if we're working with that and we're getting her to stop smoking, for instance, and she's moving away from stress, well, stress also helps her to be a good caretaker of the house, potentially. And so then you have to build it in where she can still handle her stress by not doing smoking. And she can still be the type of woman that's a good caretaker of the house. She takes care of everybody, and that's mapped accordingly. So it could be the case where you help her stop smoking, but then she just watches TV for 3 hours a night and she doesn't take care of the house any longer. And so that's the thing to take in consideration in that point.
So I think that's where that whole representation concept becomes really useful, right? Because whatever you're trying to move toward or away from, what does that thing represent? Because I feel like what you're saying is that you may need to have a replacement. It may not be okay for it to be a void.
Exactly. And there's going to be little pieces in and out. Part of this is that every part of yourself is a parts integration. So we talked parts integration a while back, but you have this part on this side and this part on this side. What you're aiming to is the highest intention of the person. And so all along, you want to do this with everything you do, and every change that you do is they're going to be interacting to see which parts align and how you can make them better align with each other. And so there might be a little bit of conflict here and there, but every change you make, everything that happens in your life, it's going to be one part and another part, and they have to align together. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I feel like I can answer this even more in depth, because there's going to be a few things that are going to come up with this that you want to pay attention to. Number one is going to be knowing how all of this new strategy is going to affect every part of your life. And so for me, I really have to know what having a going towards strategy is going to mean for me in my life. And so what am I losing by having a towards strategy? Well, potentially it's going to be that safety, that security that I had before. And that could put me in danger. I may see an investment or an opportunity to go ahead and take advantage of that normally I wouldn't do with an away from strategy. But if I have a towards strategy, I'm going to do that there. So I have to know that that puts me in some kind of form for risk. So then I also have to build in strategies for managing risk. And so how am I going to know that there's a good risk, there's a bad risk? And so then there's convincer strategies, and I have to be able to manage those as well. And so, Stephen, I guess to answer your question is there's so many parts to making sure that it's ecological, and there's a lot of places to go wrong on it. To best do it, I would say ask yourself as many questions as you can. And to say that if you were going ahead and changing one of these strategies, one of these towards or away from strategies, that this exercise where you get and do the spatial anchoring really helps a lot to see what you're missing out on and to see the broader perspective of everything.
Okay. Yeah, so there isn't an answer other than you have to be aware and pay attention and kind of test out all sorts of different possibilities. Is that a good summary?
Yeah. And I would say the more that you do that, the probably better off that you are. Really taking a look at how this affects every part of your life, because changing in one area is going to change everything. So not only changing how I acquire money, the way that I look at that, it's also going to change how I view money, how I hold on to money. Because if I'm going towards acquiring more money, and then I go and look at this other area, this area where I view having money, if I go towards having money in one area, what's it going to mean for me having money in another area?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to mean, okay, since I'm going towards it, am I going to be more easily able to acquire it? And then from that, am I going to be more easily able to spend it? Potentially, right? And so then that might be something you want to look at there. Do I want to be more easily to spend it? And so for me, I've done a lot of this. And so kind of it's in place, but there's never going to be an end to the kind of questions and the strategies that I have to develop.
Mm-hmm.
Sylvia, how are you on all this?
Well, I keep referring back to myself, and it's like, I'm so stuck. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm really stuck. So
You're stuck?
I'm stuck. Yeah.
How so?
Well, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like I'm stuck in a job that I have to have, but I should probably look at retiring, which I can't do because I have to pay off all my bills first. You know, and I'm kind of stuck in this mire at work that is, I'm really drawn towards people that are very, very upbeat. But there's a lot of people there that I've worked with a long time that are not very nice.
Okay, what do you want?
What do I want?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. That's the problem. I just don't know. I'm kind of stuck, you know? So when you're talking about all this, it's like, man, I really need to look at this stuff and figure some things out.
Okay.
You know?
Valerie, if you could have an outside perspective, what would you say that she's doing in towards and away from strategies here? Give her a minute. Mom, what do you think?
I think she's moving towards paying off all of her debt. Or I think that's right. I think she's moving towards being debt free.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And in that respect, she's hoping that when she's debt free, she could move towards an easier life, a better, maybe not. And she's moving away from working at the job.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is what I'm hearing. But Sylvia,
Lay it on me.
I don't know if this is right or not. And I don't know what other words to use. What I'm hearing is that you're leaning into your discomfort.
I'm leaning into my discomfort.
Yeah. And what I mean by that is what I'm hearing is, some people would actively try to buffer themselves against, oh my goodness, there's some people that I interact with or hang around that are not very nice. Some people might try to insulate themselves against their financial realities. But what I'm hearing is that you're leaning into that. I don't know if that's inspiring you to move away from your discomfort, even though you don't know where you want to go, or if that means that you're moving toward resolving some of it. That part I'm not sure how to say move toward or away from, but I feel like you are kind of like getting really buddy with your discomfort, which is a compliment. Like, I think that's a healthy thing because the blinders aren't there. Not your blind. I don't know you well enough to know about your blinders. I just mean in general, people like to distract themselves or insulate themselves. And so that's what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's you're right. You're right. I think sometimes, yes, I do look at things like that, but sometimes I feel like things are just happening to me where I'm out of control. And I think that happens to others too, but
it does. Yes.
I'll tell you what I heard. And my interpretation was just, she has a strong moving towards strategy. And so all these different things she wants to move towards, the retirement, the debt free, and even the coworkers, what I sensed, and it sounded like an away from strategy. I think it's really a towards strategy where you'd rather go towards these people that you do want to work with. But there's so many of them that sometimes it's hard to deal with. So which one is it? Is it I want to go towards this or I want to go towards this? And sometimes they're conflicting, and sometimes you feel like you're just out of control and a mess. But
yes,
and that sounds correct.
Yes.
And then what I'd say is that what's the one thing that you want to go towards the most? What's the one thing that if you do that one thing and you have that, it makes everything else irrelevant or not important?
I'd like to decide what it is I want to do when I retire. I think that's a big thing for me right now.
Okay.
And I can look at coaching, and I can look at hypnosis, and I can look at NLP, and I'm like, I'm kind of scared, you know.
Okay.
Okay.
And
That's normal.
what if you took care of just one thing and it made everything else, all these other things that you want to do your whole life, and you just took care of this one thing and it made everything better?
Would just be the money.
Just be the
I know
money.
it would just be the money. Mhm.
Okay. So you have that.
Yeah.
Everything's taken care of.
Yeah, that's taken
Cool.
care of.
Yeah, easy, right? So I
So
sent you
they
guys.
say. Go ahead.
I sent you guys the printout, and essentially we're going to go through the same one that we went through last week. Does everybody get that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And I'll have a few questions for you here, and I actually have a little bit of an exercise that we'll try out on this. And this is going to be exactly like we used to do with our old NLP beginnings. So I'm pretty excited about that. But what today we're going to look at is an external versus an internal form of reference. So Barb, if you want to read that for us.
Sure. External versus internal forms of reference. Where you get proofs where you get proofs of your information. It can come internally from yourself or externally from your environment. So an example, how do you know you did a good job on the project? Does the proof come from within or does it come from some external force of reference?
Okay, so what do you guys think about this one? And which one is probably your primary one?
For me, I know I'm definitely internal. I've had bosses in the past that would constantly tell me I'm doing a great job. And I really didn't care what they had to say because I knew I was doing a good job.
Mm.
And I was telling Stephen this a couple weeks ago, that I even had a boss that I had to go to and ask him to stop praising me, so to speak, on such a consistent and constant basis because it was driving me batty.
Sucks, Barb. I'm sorry.
Such a great job, you can't take it anymore.
No, well, and it's just, for me, it was like, it's kind of like, I got it, thank you, but you don't need to tell me like every day or 4 times a week or whatever. It's like, tell me once a month, tell me at my annual review. I'm good with that because I look internally to know whether or not I'm doing a good job.
Good. Stephen, which one do you think you primarily do?
Well, when I was reading through this earlier, I noticed like external versus internal, self-sorting, possibility versus necessity, and the working strategy all seem to me to be ones where you can have a strong preference. And for me, for example, I'm more like Barb. If I generally know if I'm doing a good job or not. But I had 2 additional thoughts on that and those other ones. One is it depends upon the situation, right? I may think I'm doing a good job, but I'm not. Or maybe I am doing a good job, but my boss doesn't see the good job I'm doing. And so I need to make sure that I'm getting, even though I think I am, and I maybe even know I am, I need to make sure that I'm getting some external verification of that.
Okay.
So it seems like there's probably an individual tendency towards a certain thing, but you probably need to be really flexible in a lot of those too, situationally dependent.
Mom, what do you think?
I don't really know. I don't know my thoughts on that yet. I'm still kind of thinking about it.
How do you know that you've done a good job?
I process that internally for sure. because I don't really care what anybody else thinks. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. I know I'm doing a good job, so I don't really care for anybody to tell me that or anything like that. I just feel good about myself because I know I'm doing a good job.
Okay.
So I guess it'd be internal.
There's different contexts for this as well. So what I want to ask you is, how do you know that you've done a good job in a relationship?
Maybe that would be probably external, seeing the other person happy.
Okay. How would you know that you did a good job at work?
I guess, you know, in a certain sense, that would be external too, because, you know, I mean, like, you feel good inside yourself that you did a good job, but at the same time, you also, you know, when somebody says thank you or, you know, just is really appreciative over it as well, then that's external. So I guess, you know, it's a little bit of both.
How would you know that you clean the house well?
I'd look at it and I would know.
Internal.
Internal, yeah.
Okay. Was going to go to Valerie, but I don't know if she saw his video there.
Oh, I think she
I'm here.
disappeared for a minute.
Sorry.
Oh,
We'll go to Sylvia real quick.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you feel it on the inside when you do a really good job, but sometimes it's nice to have somebody tell you that you did a good job too.
Okay.
Okay. But
How would you know for sure?
How would I know for sure? Because I feel it. I feel it on the inside.
You feel it? So let's take a specific example. You're at work and nobody tells you that you did a good job, but you did your work, you did it well. How do you know?
Because I made it easier for myself, first of all.
Okay.
I know that I've approached the people that I'm working with and that they've enjoyed their meal and that they've been waited on properly.
Okay.
You know, if I've done my job is to make other people happy in what I'm doing. So yes, that reward is there.
And it's very interesting you say that, because I just elicited exactly your internal frame of reference, one. And then also what I did is you looked and saw your convincer strategies, where you say that your job is to make everybody else happy and make sure that they're doing well. But the way that you go about finding that is from your internal frame of reference and what you said. You'd know that you did it, which is great. And so I just want everybody to see how I elicited those things, that you're not looking for somebody else, a guest, a boss, or anything like that, or 5 people to smile at you and say that you've done a good job, to know that you've done a good job.
Right, because I'm the one that does the smiling to make them smile back at me.
And Valerie, how about you?
I think it's internal. The thing I struggle with, or the reason I think that, Becky, like you, it's hard for me to care too much what other people think.
Right.
And then I think the other thing is that, and this is a huge generalization, I find that other people's standards are not up to my own. So when it comes to evaluating, I'll get praise or recognition, and sometimes it makes me sad, not for myself, but for them, because they think that's good. It's the truth. So that over the time, I have relied less on trying to benchmark against external references, unless I feel like they're in alignment with my own beliefs or standards, maybe. I've had a few bosses over the years in work that have had standards that have met or exceeded my own, and that's been really fulfilling and thrilling. I don't know.
We're going to go into more of how to elicit other people's, in addition to looking at where these would be beneficial and where you'd run into trouble with both of these. And what I've seen in this is that I'm primarily internal, and what I've noticed is that you can take it to some extreme levels, and there's a certain amount that you can go ahead and you can take it even further, where it's just internally referenced, where you're just focused on you, only you, and you really take no consideration from other people. And then there's other ways, and it's kind of like a spectrum in what I've seen, is that you can go and you can look at other people and you can be so dependent on approval from the other people, and your whole driving force can be on other people. Mm-hmm. And so for me, what I've done in my life, I've taken it to a pretty real extreme where I don't depend on other people to tell me I've done a good job at anything. And when people do, I kind of get a little bit skeptical of them. And so that's a real extreme that I've taken it to, where I don't want a resume. I don't want accolades. I don't want people to tell me that I've done a good job. I generally don't respond well to that because I have such the internal frame of reference. And that's really my own dependent. And that sometimes comes at a detriment to myself.
How? I want to know how it's detrimental.
Well, if we look at just an employer-boss relationship, if I was an employee working for somebody, then I would know that I did a good job if I completed the project and it was to my standards. And if my standards were really good, then I would know that it was a good job. Where that becomes a problem is if I have that frame of reference and I don't do a good job. If I go ahead and I complete the project and it's not very good, my internal frame of reference was like, oh yeah, it's great. But then my boss sees it and it's really bad, then it's not going to be a good thing for me. And so if you built in a lot of sensory acuity with that, then that would do you well. For me in my position now, if I go and try to hand a resume to somebody, well, it's not going to really work out well for me because I haven't tried to build a resume for anybody. So in that context, it might be a little bit troublesome. If I had been trying to build a resume for 5 years and applying to these companies who I wanted to work with, so I'd be at this place now so I could approve this person who I want to work with. Well, in that context, then having that good resume might be to my benefit. Does that answer your question all the way there? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're using the resume as an example of an external.
Exactly. I also have the specific example for you guys where I've been seeing a woman who has an external frame of reference. So she looks to other people for validation. And she has a moving away from strategy when it comes to negativity in a relationship, or a specific kind of relationship where the person isn't genuine. So she had a previous experience where the person wasn't genuine with her, so now she moves away from that. And so that's a frame to understand that she's focused on that, focused on not having that in her life. And so she's looking for that so she can push that away. In addition, she has this external frame of reference where she needs the outside world to tell her something. So in this specific situation, it's she would need to be texted every day, or she would need to be told that she was pretty, or that she was cared about, or anything like that. She would need this external frame of reference to validate the internal feelings that she had. And so if that external frame of reference isn't there, then it can create problems.
Sounds exhausting.
It could be.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, no kidding.
I agree. And I had an employee years back that had an external frame of reference. And one of the women in HR pointed it out to me. And so it became exhausting for me that every single day I had to tell this woman good morning and that she was doing a good job. And it was like she'd be coming down the hallway, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, oh shit, here she comes. Because I'm like, oh, I just felt like it depleted my energy right away, because it was something that it was very hard for me to understand. I'm like, she was the same age as I am. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you're a grown woman. Why do I need to tell you hello every morning? And why do I need to tell you you're doing a great job every day? You should know you're doing
emotional
a good job.
tax.
Right.
right? It's no longer just
Yeah.
good morning. It's good morning. I affirm and validate you as a human being. The message. And I have someone on my team like that a little bit, not as bad as that, but they're kind of like that. And it is
energy
toxic.
sync.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Can I say something? This is very interesting to me because I have to talk to every single person I talk to, and I say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is. And that includes the people I work with. That's a very common thing in my job. I mean, I have to. I don't have a choice. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If I looked at a guest and didn't tell them good morning or something, it's like, do you want coffee? That's wrong. It's considered part of my job to do that.
But isn't that exhausting?
No.
But you're in the hospitality.
Yes, I am in the hospitality. So it's like, yes, that's part of my job, and that's part of what I show, and that's part of doing what I'm supposed to be doing. That's part of my job.
Have you noticed it with the people that you interact with, where some people are really receptive to that and other people aren't so much?
No. You notice it when people do not talk to you in the morning.
Okay.
You know, it's that aware. It's that prominent.
The difference that I see, and I come from that internal frame of reference where I don't really like it when somebody tells me those kind of things.
What? Good morning? Just to tell you good morning? You know?
Sometimes.
Morning, Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not like out there like searching for that. I don't need that. And so that's more towards the internal frame of reference, where if you have the external person, I think they're going to light up every time, and they're going to need that from somebody.
You find that people that don't usually talk to you or are brand new or whatever it is, if you just say good morning to them, they don't know who you are. Eventually, like the third or fourth day, they'll find out who you are and they call you by your name. It's very interesting. It's part of that, I don't know, that strategy, that welcome strategy that,
So what we're seeing here is the kind of minority are the ones with the external frame of references.
Is that true?
You know, I've never thought about it too much. And now that I see it, it kind of means that maybe, I don't know, maybe in America, people are really secure or independent, Stephen? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe your guys' experiences, would you say that
American value independence?
Yeah. But you'd say that most people are pretty internally sorting on this? I'm trying to think.
I don't think most people in America are internal. I think most of them are external.
You think so?
Really?
It's the ones that I think it's the ones that dig down deep and learn about themselves, kind of like we do with NLP and things like that. People who can think outside of the box that are more internal because they don't need outside approval. They're past that.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
I'm trying to think back at it myself. And when I was working, I did have some people, some coworkers that were external sorting. And so you had to tell them they did a good job all the time. And then you do have the kind of women that are out there buying fashionable clothing so they get compliments, and posting 20 times on Instagram so they get compliments and likes and all those things.
That's an interesting connection, between Instagram and all of those, Facebook and that sort of stuff, and external validations.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, when I had Facebook, it just drove me crazy because that's what it seemed like that's what most of the people were looking for, was some kind of external validation. And I mean, one of my sisters, she would get on my case because she's like, Barb, I don't know what's going on in your life because you don't post anything on Facebook. I'm like, if you want to know what's going on in my life, you can pick up the phone and call me. You are my sister. I said, but I don't need people, everybody, you know, that I'm friends with on Facebook. I don't need them to know what's going on in my life. That's not important to me. But you bring that up, Sean. It's really interesting because, and I love to hear, Becky and Sylvia and Valerie, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, because it almost, now that I'm thinking about it, it seems like social media and reaching out on social media and getting that sometimes instant gratification of an external feed is satisfying to people. And maybe that's what they're looking for.
I don't post a lot on Facebook. In fact, if I post anything on Facebook, it's usually to uplift other people's day. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with them. It's just hopefully something positive that might resonate with them to make them feel better. But other than that, I don't get into the Facebook drama. I can't stand it. In fact, I'll go 2 or 3 days without even getting on Facebook because, I don't need to go siphon through all that crap,
I've gone my entire life without getting on Facebook. Sean, have we been talking about the self-sorting versus sorting by others?
No, we haven't gotten to that yet.
Okay, you used that term, and so I was not sure if we were there yet or not. But so I'm sorry.
In this one, I want to bring up something important here. It's the convincer strategies. And so sure, we have this metaprogram on a higher level. Essentially, we had said before that this is pretty much like that triangle in the logical levels where everything's filtered through this software. But you also have the convincer strategies, which I would say is a lower level. It's a strategy. And so you have this person and they sort externally, or I'm sorry, not sort, but they have this validation externally. And so they go to Instagram, they go to Facebook, and they post pictures. How do they know if they're a beautiful person? So say it's a woman, she's 18 years old, and she looks for external validation. At what level, what point does she know? Is it if she has 18 likes that she's a beautiful person, or is it at 24? Or is it at 50? At 5, does she think that she's ugly? And so then that brings us into the convincer strategies. So you got a little bit more to this meta program where you have essentially, this is the meta program. This is how they generally will take in this information. And then you can observe exactly to what level they'll take in the information, depending on their convincer strategies. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sylvia, how are you? I haven't liked any of your Facebook pictures lately.
I don't put Facebook pictures on there. I put stories on there most of the time.
Well, we're still interested in seeing your life.
But that's it. I don't talk about my life on Facebook.
Yeah.
I might see friends that have moved away and they tell me what's going on with their family and stuff. But that's it. I don't post stuff about my life. It's mostly stories that I enjoy that I want to share.
Val, you had brought up that it might be exhausting. What I want to know is how could we make it better to talk to somebody who is more of an external frame of reference?
Yeah, good question.
Well, I'm very interested in what motivates people. So I think that if there is a real motivation to share a thought or affirmation with an external, and an external referencer is receiving it, that's probably not exhausting to me, because it's authentic, and it's something that I feel moved to share. So to answer your question, Sean, when I think about that source of motivation, if I can not be so self-involved then it's possible that I may find it easier to be motivated in a real way, to share things or to interact with people, to kind of get out of myself, get out of my own head. So there might be something real and actionable there. So if I'm focusing on others and I'm not wrapped up in my own crap, then maybe it wouldn't have such an emotional tax to it.
Okay.
Like, so I have a team member, and he's actually a very secure and confident person. And so there's a little bit of a tax, but it's not as bad maybe as, Barb, what you were describing about the woman that needs, to know she's doing a good job every day. But one of the ways that I find a better, less taxing motivation is because by greeting him and stopping by his desk every morning, I know that that this is me meeting his needs, but it's also meeting my need to be a good leader for my team. And so like that whole value exchange of the relationship feels a little bit more equalized, because I can see what I'm getting out of this and what he's getting out of this. And that makes that motivation easier. The energy hit isn't so bad. It was hard at first because I had to really consciously change my behavior. So, but is that tracking? Is this answering your question, Sean?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, but those are my fault. I mean, those are my kind of tendencies and weaknesses, is to be a little too introspective, a little too self-involved. It takes energy for me to be with people. And so, I don't know.
Let's take it to the extremes, because we can really learn the most when we do that. So Barb, can you give us the most extreme example of somebody who's externally referenced?
Let's see. That would be somebody who, no matter if they're at work or in their personal relationships, always looking to other people to validate what they're thinking, what they're doing, and basically who they are. So they're always looking for that external person to say, yep, you're doing the right thing. Yep, you're a great person. Yeah, you're on track with your career. To me, that would be the extreme, is somebody who in all aspects and all the relationships needs to have that external validation.
What would a relationship be like with this person?
For me, taxing. I probably wouldn't last very long.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And what would happen?
That person, if I was in a relationship with somebody that was the extreme for external, they probably would think that I didn't love them, that I didn't care about them. I had no interest in them. And they probably actually would break it off before I did, because they would just like, you don't even love me, so I'm not even going to be with you anymore. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? Of course I love you. Well, you don't tell me every single time I see you. Well, I don't need to, would be my response. And they'd be like, yes, you do. Yes, you do. And then it'd be like, oh, Lordy, that would be hard for me.
And I was thinking nightmare, like somebody who's super insecure. You always have to tell them how good they are. You always have to tell them how much you care about them. And there's certain levels to it, of course, but we're taking the most extreme one. And so the example with the woman that I had earlier is not an extreme case. But if I have an extreme case, well, as you said, it's going to be taxing, so taxing. There's going to be so much energy spent on that. When really I wanted to just go and do my own thing, and for you to feel good about yourself on your own,
Right.
So this is sometimes where it comes up, where there's emotionally dependent relationships. And the psychologists will label that. But if you essentially just need somebody else for your validation, this is what happens: is two people get together and they validate themselves, where they make themselves feel good and they validate their worldviews. And without that person, if they lose that person, then they have a hard time validating their worldview. And so they have to hold on to that person too, because everybody else won't validate their worldview. But when this one person does, it means everything to them. which is an added level why that can be so difficult for somebody. Valerie, this one's for you. What's the example of the most internally referenced person and why it could be a problem if he was such?
Extreme internal reference. I think this person would be able to justify any course of action that they wanted. They would be a loner, disassociated from reality and from social norms.
Touch on that social norms a little bit more, because it's important that we hit that.
Like I'm thinking of somebody that thinking of somebody specific, but I'm thinking of someone that can break the law, so they can ignore whatever societal laws are in place and feel absolutely indignant when they are held accountable to it. Because contextually, in the moment, breaking the law was the, most logical and sensible thing for them to do. And they're able to justify whatever course of action, is going to best suit them. I mean, I'm thinking extremes, but there's not a lot of ecology, I think, in that worldview. There's no balancing, there's no checks and balances. Unable to take input or even consider other worldviews or other points of perspective, which may be problematic in any situation that involves more than just that person. So if they're working in a group, working on a team, volunteering on a team, part of a family unit.
This kind of person's probably going to be pretty isolated. Sometimes they're successful and sometimes they're not very successful. But if we have a successful person who's in this, maybe they have a great job and they've been super successful there. And so they're totally internally validated, but they don't have a relationship and everybody else out there is bad for them. And it's true because they know that internally they're the best thing that somebody else could have. And so they'd go so far and reaffirm their life as that. They'd reaffirm their life as that. And it would go even further in the fact that they'd be all alone in everything they are because of their frame of reference. And if you try to correct this person or tell them something about their life, whose authority, whose context do they have to do so? It wouldn't really hold a candle to this person's internal frame of reference.
And it's threatening. I mean, it's considered an act of aggression.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be psychologically a dangerous thing to do.
Yeah.
Fun stuff.
So definitely better to be somewhere in the middle where you're oscillating on these. Generally, the people who are most successful will come from an internal frame of reference. The owners of companies, and there'll be different levels of it. And there is also the trap of having too much of an internal frame of reference where you can miss out on what you do wrong. You can miss out on other people's worldviews. You can miss out on other people's chances to interact with you or to even contribute something to you. But that would lead also to somebody being super focused. If I was the owner of a company and I didn't care what my employees thought and I had the right direction, then I'd probably lead my employees really well, even though I didn't consider them at all. However, if I didn't lead them the right direction and they tried to tell me all these different things, and then it becomes a problem. Sylvia, how are you feeling with all this?
I agree with everything you just said.
Anything to add to it?
No.
Okay. Mom, how about you?
I think people with an external frame or an external reference are come across as very needy people. And I think very needy people are very draining. I have a hard time with needy people. It's just exhausting.
Have you had
go
that in a
ahead.
relationship?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Where the guy had an external frame of reference?
Yeah, and you had to validate everything they did or said, and I would leave before. Like Barb said, he'd probably leave her first. I would probably leave first. I probably wouldn't even get involved. I'd just be like, okay, I can't do this. And I think you have a very strong internal reference where sometimes it could be borderline of being too strong.
Yeah.
Just different things. Like for instance, where it's all understood and it's all accepted, but there's when you stop celebrating Christmas, for instance, your internal representation was that's fine, but then to other people like your family, they might have been like, well, no, it's not.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts.
Yeah, guys, I haven't celebrated Christmas in some years. My internal frame of reference is kind of allowed for that. Yeah.
Yeah. I did that for a number of years, Sean. I didn't celebrate pretty much any holidays. And then I went back to celebrating them again.
Okay. I have a few.
Social
holidays.
Social norms, we got it.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that sometimes it gets back to the money thing and spending so much money on all these different little things that I don't want to do that anymore. It's not that I don't want to celebrate Christmas. I just don't want to do the traditional
money thing.
Yes. I don't want to do the money thing. I think
get together with family.
Yes. Just be together with family. That's what I really want.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But kids are a different thing. Oh, Valerie.
I don't have any tension with Christmas. I don't have tension with celebrating holidays. I love a good party, so I'm usually up for a celebration. There's only one holiday that I struggle with, and it's entirely for sentimental reasons. But yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's what's it about for you, and whichever's right for you. And so if it is, I want to celebrate Christmas as like Barb has, and that's her internal frame of reference. I do it because I want to do it, and then that's exactly it. For me, I do it or I don't do it because that's what's right for me. Not because somebody else, a family member. That was a great example. I'm glad you brought that up.
See, I was fine with it. It's like, because to me, Christmas is getting together to be with family. It's not about the presents or anything like that. In fact, that ruins it.
That also demonstrates another problem that the person might have is if they're not a good communicator, that they'll have a challenge interacting with the world outside of them.
Is that a question or a statement?
No, it's a statement. I thought somebody might pick it up, but that's totally fine. So we got a few examples here, and what I want to give us is just more ability to communicate with different types of people. And so what I'm going to do, and I'm going to call Sylvia on this one, is I'm going to put a phrase in the chat box, and it's for everybody. And I just kind of want you to tell us which kind of person this would be good to communicate to. And we've gone over 2 different metaprograms here. We've gone over towards and away from strategies. And we've also gone over internal versus external frames of references. So we'll be looking at all these examples. Is it a towards strategy or an away from strategy, 1? And number 2, is the communication well tailored for somebody who sorts externally or internally? So this one's for you, Sylvia. The quote is, "You're the only one who would lose if you didn't attend this course." I
didn't have the whole thing. I just got a half of it. You're the only one
who would lose.
You said that's who would lose
if you did not have this course.
I'm going to say that's internal. And what's the other thing? The rest of it, the second part of it?
Going away or going towards?
But yeah, but then it would be going towards if you don't take the course, right? If you did take the course. I can't see the whole thing that you put up there.
Is there a way you can scroll on it?
No.
Can you scroll down?
Yeah, I can't see it anymore either.
Really?
It just popped up for a minute and then went away before I even had a chance to read the whole thing.
Type it again.
Yeah, I've got it. I can see the whole thing.
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe it's because I'm on my phone.
Yeah, I took my view off of full screen so that the chat box showed up.
Okay. See, and then I get this, but I don't get the whole thing. Let's see here. Okay. You're the only one who would lose if you didn't attend this course. It's still external to me.
External?
Or internal. Internal. It's internal.
Okay.
Yes, it's definitely internal.
Okay.
So you could put this in two different frameways. I could be saying this to somebody, or I could be talking to myself. Do you understand?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it could be internal.
We're talking to somebody else, then.
And you would be moving towards. You would be trying to talk them into moving towards.
Towards what?
Towards this course.
How do they know that?
Because you're telling them you're the only one who would lose if you didn't attend this course.
Okay. Barb, what do you think?
I agree with Sylvia that this is more for somebody who has an internal form of reference, but I would say this is moving away because you're telling the person you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And so that's, to me, is for somebody who's more of who moves away from things and has that metaprogram, that they don't want to, it's kind of like using that negative language of losing, that is going to speak their language. Does that make sense?
Got it, Sylvia?
Yes, but if you're using that language, aren't you trying to get them to do what you want them to?
You are, but you do want, yes, you are trying to get them to attend the course,
right?
But you're using their language. So by saying you're going to lose. If you don't attend the course, you're going to lose. And that is somebody who has more of a moving away tendency.
I see now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it comes back to the focus. Do they want to win or do they want to not lose? And the course is just a route. It's a bridge that'll take them to not losing. And so, of course, it's presupposed underneath the whole communication that they're going to win and that they're going towards that. But the direct communication, the conscious part and what they're going to receive is that they're not going to lose. And that's what's more important to that person. And so if we use that with that kind of person, we're going to be more effective with our communication.
Okay.
This next one's for Valerie.
I think it's moved toward because it's identifying a destination, winning, the winning place, and it's drawing attention to what I would perceive as whatever the steps are that would get me there, like whatever I would need to do. You want to win, you know what you'll have to do. I'm not as confident about external versus internal, but I want to say that it's external because of the verb do, things that I do rather than beliefs that I would have to change. I don't know. Again, less confident about that, but And winning.
Okay. Winning is definitely moved towards.
Yeah.
Sylvia, what would you say about internal versus external? Are we trying to convince this guy that
Yes.
other people know it or that he knows it?
Okay, if you're talking to a team, like a football team, if you want to win, you're going towards it, and you know what you will have to do. So they know what they have to do. So you're appealing to their internal part.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
This one's for you, Mom.
Okay. I think it's external. Everyone says that you have to, I don't remember exactly what I said, but everyone says you have to reach your full potential.
Read the whole thing for us.
I can't see it anymore. It flashes on my screen and then it goes away.
There you go.
Everyone says that to reach your full potential, you have to put in the work. So that's external. Everyone says that to reach your full potential, you have to put in the work. That's not internally what you're thinking. You would be thinking, if I want to reach my full potential, I have to put in all the work. So I would assume that would be external.
Okay, it's external. What else?
And it'd be moving towards. You have to put in work.
What are we moving towards?
Full potential.
Okay. That's what we want to worry about, is where's the focus? Is it on not having the full potential or on the full potential?
Reaching your full potential. So yeah, it's moving towards.
Okay. You guys notice how just a little bit of language can change everything here?
Mm-hmm.
Barbara, how could you use this?
Well, if I have somebody who has an external frame of reference and they have a moving toward metaprogram, I could definitely use it to motivate somebody to put in the work that needs to be done. So regardless if it's, you could actually be a little sneaky, and regardless if it's going to help them reach their full potential or not, you could use that to get them to do the work that needs to be done.
Okay.
So it's a motivator.
This one's for you.
To get out of your pain, you will have to find what's right for you. So this is somebody who is moving away because they're going to move away from their pain, and they have an internal frame of reference because it's what's right for you.
Okay. Everybody else, what do you guys think? You guys good with that assertion?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's exactly right. The most. I got a complicated one for you. So, yeah, we'll make this even more complicated. And whoever can get this one, it'll be great. Okay. So to get the most out of your life, you have to find your inner peace, find your highest potential, and become the best you that you know you can be.
Moving towards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And internal.
Why do you say internal?
Because you're thinking about what would be best for you. You're not looking at what other people think you're best at. You're finding what's best for you. You don't care what other people think.
Absolutely. No, that's good.
Yay, me. No, I'm just kidding.
Questions, comments on that? Look and try to find those, because what will happen is people will try to communicate with you the ones that they want to be communicated in. So as a good example of this, the woman that I'm seeing, what she'll do is she'll text me every day, and she'll bring me food, bring me dinner, or compliment me, or all those different things. With the external frame of reference, she wants to be communicated in that way as well, and so she communicates that way. Which could add.
Do you reciprocate in that way?
Do I what?
Do you do the same thing? Do you text her? Do you bring her food? Do you, do you?
No.
I'm just asking. I don't know. I'm just wondering what.
Are you kidding?
Let me ask you, what do you think I'd have to do to make the relationship work?
Oh, man.
Thank her. Show appreciation.
Pace and lead.
Yeah.
What do you got, Sylvia?
If you're telling me that she's doing all this stuff for you, she wants to be appreciated for that. So I think appreciation and probably reciprocation in the fact that she, you could call her once in a while and text her or bring her food or take her to dinner or whatever it is. Yes.
Yeah. And so you asked the question, and honestly, it's one of my biggest challenges is doing those things, whether it's the texting every day or sending back compliments or getting somebody food or picking them up something. So yeah,
what would you like to do? How would you like it to be? I'm just asking.
I don't mind it. Honestly, I want to be capable of doing both, because I've always been capable of handling someone internally referenced where they don't need those kind of things. And so I'm okay with that, doing some kind of external things and being able to do those things. What I'd like to have is to be able to take care of the person in the way that they need to be taken care of.
Is that too much for you? Is that too needy for you? That's my question. So
I think I can do it. It's not too bad.
I have to ask though, I mean, that's just the way, that's her love language. She likes to show so if you find out what she likes to receive, you know what I mean? Like how she wants to receive love, it could be totally different than the way, well, it probably isn't different than the way she's giving it, but you know what I mean? You have to learn all of them and be good at all of them.
Be able to give, be able to receive all of them.
Right.
So same conversation as the love language, yeah.
I think my question is she interested in learning how you want to be taken care of?
Probably not. But most people aren't. Most people, they want to communicate in the ways that they want to. And so that's why it takes somebody who's willing to go the extra mile and be the expert communicator to do that. And as you said, pacing and leading. So can I teach her the ways that I want to? Can I set it up a situation where it's just natural and it happens automatically? And if you want to take it further into NLP, we can look at essentially conditioning, showing somebody else those kind of things with pacing and leading. So how would I do that pacing and leading? What I do is a whole bunch of the same things, showing her her love language, showing her the exact same type of communication she gives me, and then I would move it away from that. So about a week ago, she it was like 3 times in a row where she had brought me dinner each night. Like we saw each other 3 weeks in a row, and each time she brought me something different. The 4th week, I said something like, I don't need anything but you. And so it's an example of pacing where it's validating her experience, showing her externally that I care about her, and then also leading her into a new behavior.
Did it work?
Yeah.
Did she stop bringing you dinner?
I don't know if you call that working or not. I really don't.
Because I'm thinking that sometimes their culture is to bring food, is to bring that kind of thing for their culture.
Well, I tell you, Sylvia, it's been 2-3 weeks since I've gotten dinner brought to me, and I don't know if it worked or not.
Well, then you must have said something right.
But I mean, it worked in that way. And I would add to that not necessarily the culture, although some families might believe it. Potentially, most of what I've experienced, at least here, isn't been that culture. I'd say more than anything, it's the underlying metaprograms here, and then beliefs added to all that.
Okay.
Cool. Other
Yes.
questions, thoughts about metaprograms?
So the one thing I'm realizing is how, you've touched on this a couple different times, Sean, is that even when you're looking at one metaprogram, like moving toward or moving away, there's also other metaprograms that come into play. And so just seeing how they all work together and how important they are to each other, that's one of the key things I'm walking away with tonight. So thank you.
Yeah. I'd also say that it's a benefit that we've done it kind of this way, where we've just done one metaprogram and we've really gone in deep with it and seeing how it works. I'm glad it worked out that way. I didn't plan it that way, but it's been beneficial, especially for me to see how these work together and really taking them slow. And then I would also just say that there's so many different perspectives in it, where when I had first thought about this and when I didn't look into metaprograms, I thought I was just dealing with somebody who's insecure. And so it's not necessarily that, but it's dealing with somebody who communicates in a different way. And so that's been the biggest change and the shift for me in understanding that.
Interesting, they summed it all up into one word: insecure.
Yeah. And it's deceiving when you say that, where you put a label on somebody and they need something from you, or they need some kind of communication, and it's not necessarily that. And so sometimes it's beneficial to simplify and chunk it down into one word, and then other times it's limitations and it brings problems with your communication and the way that you move through the world. Cool. Valerie, what's your final take?
I'm wondering how flexible I am. That's kind of what's running through my mind right now.
How flexible are you?
I don't know. I'm wondering also how, I was thinking this as you guys were talking about insecure. I'm wondering how I can disassociate external referencers with a lack of security. I mean, just because it's not something that I seek a lot of from other people,
I'll give you a specific example too, and this is how I knew, because I was a little confused. I was like, how is this woman insecure? Like, how is this possible? She owns her own business, runs it successfully here in Bali, and she has another business that she has had where she's super successful in Australia, handles all her stuff. I mean, super competent, smart, intelligent, all these things. I was really asking myself, like, how is this possible? She's insecure. I don't really believe it. And then I came up on the Metaprograms, and then I just saw it differently, where it wasn't so much the case that she didn't believe she was enough, but she had to be told that she was enough. And being the woman that she is that she actively does that process on her own. She's secure enough to do that process and to find what she needs from other people, but she finds that security ultimately. And it's not that she's insecure or secure, but it's the way that she finds herself to be secure.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense in breaking that down a little bit?
It does, and it takes a strong sense of self to be able to define what you need and communicate that to others.
I would then even compound it and then look at maybe your situation or another woman's situation, where if you put this into some kind of dating context, it would really be hard to distinguish and see somebody who's insecure and then see somebody also who just has an external reference of something. For example, we got really specific with this, and maybe there was some guy that you were looking at or who was potential for you, and then he came to you with an external form of reference. That would probably come off as pretty weak, pretty needy, and pretty supplicating and seeking some kind of approval from you.
Hmm.
And so then it would preclude a whole number of guys that were just external references from your dating pool. And so basically you would automatically have a pre-selected filter for internal references, guys who had that. And so on our conversation earlier, where we were talking about who's the majority, are these internal seekers or these external seekers? Mm-hmm. What it makes me think is that if this kind of selection went along, Valerie, you wouldn't want a weak man, an insecure man, as I'm sure a lot of women, all you women here, wouldn't want a weak man or a weak person in your life. What would be naturally happening, and natural selection would occur, is the people with internal frames of reference would be more and more, because that's what the girls would choose for. And so to be with a woman, you'd have to have an internal frame of reference. Your thoughts?
I think it's hard. I think it's especially hard when you're trying to establish rapport with somebody in a dating context. If they, I gotta use a different word than need. It's not that they need it, but if their default communication mode would require me to espouse more or share more, then it would be really hard for me to naturally establish that bond with somebody, because I would perceive it as, boy, they need a lot of encouragement. I wonder if they are not worth getting to know. So yeah, it's, I'm sure there would be some scrambled egg up here in my head this week.
What do you think, Mom?
It's a good awareness that you brought to my attention, as far as, internal and external and neediness. Yeah, I just, it's good to be aware of, because and then you can react or take action in ways that you need to communicate with the people that you must, so for instance, if you had somebody who was quote unquote needy at work, I've had people like that worked underneath me, and so you'd compliment them all the time and, give them direction all the time, that kind of thing. And it does get exhausting, but, if you don't have the tools or the awareness that that's their external representation, then you wouldn't adapt to accommodate them, and therefore, they probably wouldn't last very long. You know what I mean? So, and if you have a boyfriend that, is external as well, you might want to either think, it kind of depends in that situation whether they turn out to be so needy that it's too much work for you, or whether or not, they have a balance between the two and that you can actually work with it. I've heard you say sometimes like, this girl needs a lot of work. I don't know if I can do it, that kind of thing. And then there's other times where it's like, yeah, they need work, but it's, not so bad that it's, not worth it or whatever.
My question is, do you think you can build in systems or something using NLP where they wouldn't need it as much or wouldn't be so much work?
I think you could.
Knowing NLP, what do you think you could do?
Anchor reassurance, anchor confidence.
Yeah.
Anchor when you compliment them or when you give thanks, you can anchor that so that you don't always have to say the same words, you could just touch their leg or whatever. But I think you could do anchors for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you one using a Milton pattern. Me smiling at you means that I'm happy with you.
Not always, but
so that's really specific, and I like how you have the rigid rejection to that. But if you're with somebody and they're in an active relationship, you say that to somebody, they could be like, "Oh, okay, yeah."
Right.
So then every time, then they kind of have that implanted in their mind, that embedded command that they see you smiling, and then it makes it easier on you that you don't always have to do that.
Right. Right.
Cool. Barb, we're going to get Steven back?
I don't think so. He had to take a phone call.
Oh, okay. Well, that's too bad. Sylvia, any final thoughts from you?
I really liked what you just said. I find that one little statement, I think there's more statements that could be used for those kinds of situations.
Okay, what else?
I liked it. I don't know.
So say you're in a relationship with somebody who's a little bit external seeking and it's exhausting on you a little bit. How can you make that easier?
How can I make it easier? I don't know, by placating that, I think, like just what am I going to use here?
I'll give you another one. So me not texting you and making you miss me means that I care about you.
Try it again.
Me not texting you and making you miss me makes you see that I care about you. I said it a little bit differently that first time. That was a little bit better, but
Yeah, I think that's kind of misleading.
Is that you see?
It does. I think it's misleading in a sense.
and it depends on how good your rapport with them, but it's the pacing and meeting part of it. If you genuinely don't mean it, then it's misleading. But if you genuinely did mean it, then it's a good thing. Could you give us any kind of example you might have on how to make it easier on yourself in this context?
I'm just blank. I'm just playing with Becky's dog over here. Sorry.
I'm sorry. They're needy. They're very needy.
Very needy, yeah. Let you know what they want, you know?
There we go.
They're a lot of work.
Okay, then. I guess we can go ahead and wrap it up just 3 minutes early here.
You know, I think if we can get back to that, it's like, I think if you're just honest with them, like, I'm really busy, you know, this week or this day or whatever it is, so I'll call you on Wednesday or whatever it is, to let them know that you're really interested, but you don't have time to deal with it daily, in a sense. Does that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to an even more advanced level, because that's what they'll normally tell you to do in a relationship is say, I'm busy, but I'll text you then. Or I'm busy and I really care, but I'll make this happen at this time. And what I want to do and what I teach is to look more towards the positive communication. And so what we want to stay away from is saying busy and promising them something. What we want to do is we want to move towards giving them good emotions, giving them good feelings.
Okay.
And so what you might say instead of I'm really busy is that, I'm thinking about you all the time that I'm not texting you. And as soon as I get a chance, I'm going to text you every chance I get.
Oh my God.
I know. I'm going to text you every chance I get.
How does that one sit with you guys? And Valerie, I know you're shaking your head, but you're internally referenced. I don't think you...
Right. Yeah, I was going to say for somebody who's externally referenced, I think that would be, a great thing for them to hear. Because then they know you're thinking about them, even though you're not texting, you're thinking about them. And as soon as you have an extra minute, you're going to be texting them all the time. Which is like, okay, it's coming. The texting is coming.
In addition, it builds on that. Every time that you're not texting them, you're building on top of that emotional feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You had something, Valerie?
In my head, I'm imagining the sort of proof that you would have to provide, like the sort of behavior that you would have to do to kind of prove out this concept, and how easy it would be to fall into that trap. Because if you're texting someone else, and I don't mean someone you're romantically involved with, but if you're texting someone else instead of them, then it can start to feel incongruent. I don't know, that part is, that's why I think I was making the face. Like I could just see the domestic dispute unfold in my head. Well, you're texting your mother, like.
Right. Or you were texting your friend Joe, who I was standing next to while you were texting him.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Like those types of, I don't know.
Well, and remember that where the proof comes from here. For this person, where does the proof come from?
Externally.
Yeah. So if she's next to Joe and you're texting Joe, well, that's a problem. But if she's not near any of your friends and you're not texting any of them and you say that, there's only one place of external information that she's getting or he's getting at that point.
Right.
But there's also this situation where anytime they're with you, they're texting a whole bunch of other people. So you kind of know that they're always texting people all the time. And so by saying that, I would think, you know what I mean? That would be just total BS.
Who's texting which people?
Like if you're with somebody, like say for instance, your boyfriend or whatever, and anytime they're with you, they're texting all kinds of other people.
So your boyfriend's texting every time that you're together
with him, he's texting other people. And so when he says, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not texting you right now, but when I get the chance, I'll text you all kinds. You're kind of like going, well, wait a minute. You get the chance every day, all the time. Every time you're with me, you've got the chance.
Yeah.
What are you doing that you can't actually text me?
And that might be incongruent as well. Even in that situation, it's better to keep it positive and say that you can't text somebody. I don't say that. I say, I'll text you, and then make it as positive as you can. Anchor all those positive feelings to it, I say. As much as you can. Not, I'm busy. It's, I'm thinking about you still, and I will text you. And so then you leave out all the negativity, all those bad feelings. It's just good feelings.
Mm-hmm.
What if we change that? People text people all the time, and it's like there's no real communication. There's no way to feel the language or the sound of their voice to tell what kind of mood they're really in.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be easier just to call them and say, I'm thinking about you, and by hang up or whatever? But just to do something like that to me is a little better than the texting thing.
What do you guys think?
I'm good with texting.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like to talk on the telephone though either.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm just thinking if it was, for instance, if it was somebody like my one sister, Linda, even if I try to call her just to say, hey, I'm thinking about you, I'll catch up with you later, I'd still end up being on the phone with her for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So
Really? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. So it's better just to text and say, hey, thinking about you, let's catch up. And then in about...
So does she call you back? And you
yeah,
talk
but she'll text me back and say, okay, sounds great. And then in about 2 or 3 weeks, I'll text her and say, hey, can you talk? But I've now planned for the next 2 hours that I'm going to be on the phone with her.
Yeah.
Right.
If you call me, it sends me a negative emotion.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, this is the younger generation talking back. Okay, so why? Why does it make it?
I understand the intent and the positivity behind it, but it interrupts the things that I'm doing. And I'm not sure how much of involvement that I'm going to be on. I also know that you probably want something or need something. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to give that. I'm not sure if you need it now. It's all this kind of uncertainty. Whereas if I just have a text, then I can look at this and be like, what am I going to do? And then send it back. So for example, if you called me every time, every week and such, if I had one negative emotion from it where, oh, she's going to need something or she's going to want to talk for 10 minutes and there was negativity associated with that, calling me every week would associate that negativity, seeing your name on my phone and being like, oh, okay, we're going to have to do this.
Okay. Good.
Whereas the text, and in the text, I'm always positive too. And so I don't ever bring up any negatives. It's always positive, happy things as well. So if somebody sees a text from me, it's probably going to have a smile on their face. But for instance, at least for me, if I get a phone call, I'm like, oh, what's this going to be about?
Okay. You explained that very well. Thank you.
Yeah. Whereas I imagine that if you have a phone call, maybe you see that good stuff in it, you're glad to talk to somebody. It probably means to you that somebody was thinking about you and it makes you feel good or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's more personal. To me, it's more personal.
Valerie, what's your take on all of it?
I'm thinking about somebody that I tried dating and it completely fell apart because of text.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was thinking about how, so from a taking a step back, I was thinking about how if I was with somebody or if I was getting to know somebody that was an external referencer, one thing that I might do is try to really drill down into what it is that they want. Like, because sometimes compliments fall flat, sometimes the behavior doesn't meet the need. And so in order to sort of make myself as efficient as possible, I might try to get them to articulate exactly what it is. And then it would be easier for me to do that. In this particular example, I did that. And I mean, we were just getting to know each other, so it wasn't very serious. But for him, it was about the speed of response. He needed a very quick response. And he told me, he said, the way you text makes me feel like shit. And I was like, why? You know, like we're just getting to know each other. It just takes you so long to get back to me.
Wow.
And so in that situation, it resolved itself pretty quickly because I was not going to be able to provide him with what he needed. I mean, there's no way. I'm not glued to my phone that way. You know, I'm just not. And so I was really shocked though, because he had 2 small children, although not 2 small children that he took care of all the time. I think that was the difference. So I thought, why is this so mysterious? But he needed a quick response. It wasn't even about the content, but he needed the validation of a response. And I don't look at texts that way. I don't look at them as like, I need to get back to somebody right away. I don't look at email that way. I'm not the person that's like, I got your email or thanks or got it. That causes me issues at work a little bit, not much, but like our accountant wants that type of validation with the thanks, got it. And I'm more in the like respect your inbox kind of crowd of I would not disrespect you by crowding up your inbox with meaningless messages, you know? So yeah, that's all that was running through my mind. But the whole yeah, the whole, what exactly is it that you want out of the communication? I think it's helpful to know.
I would say that you could use NLP for that, but I don't think so. That's one you might just hire a virtual assistant for if you can.
For my dating? Can I do that?
Text
There
them
you
as
go.
soon as you can. I want immediate responses every time. I don't even care if it's English.
Keep this one lukewarm. This one's I'm getting excited, so really kind of like amp that up. And
Next thing you know, you have stuff like Lo Siento sent to your guy, but he's totally happy.
yeah, great, thrilled. I never thought of outsourcing it, Sean. You gonna find me someone in Bali that can do that across time zones?
But I'm sitting here thinking, gosh, that could be a really good business.
Yeah, no doubt.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we're a little bit over time, so I'll leave it open. Anybody has anything else? Any other comments?
I just have a request. I don't know if it's one that you can meet or not, but at the beginning of this session, you were verbally articulating your process for changing your Metaprogram, and I was listening to it and trying to take it in, but I don't know if you have any of that summarized bullet points, or you had quite kind of a longer process, and I'd be really interested to I think be able to read it, just visual, see it.
Okay.
So if you can just like tear out a page from your journal or your diary or whatever and just scan that,
Email it to all of us. That'd be great.
Yeah.
on Facebook, so you're gonna have to do a dictaphone thing or something and get it written down. Like,
you guys thought so too. It's more best done with a visual and describing it, probably.
Well, it sticks better. Like, you can read it over and over again and really get the concept better than just the way you explained it so fast.
Okay.
we have a lot of steps.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll put together something for that.
Thanks.
And then next week I'll be in Singapore. I'm gonna try to see if I have internet there though. So we can go ahead and look at still doing it. If not, I'll go ahead and message you guys prior to. I'll know the day before if I'll have a reliable internet so that we can still do this. But yeah, I have to go to Singapore so I can take care of my visa stuff, and then I'll be back in Bali the following week.
Cool. Okay.
Is this all working out for you guys? You like these sessions, the way that we do this kind of structured like the old ones?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do. I really enjoy these.
Yeah? Okay, good.
This is my first time, but yeah, definitely. And then I'm glad I get to watch them when I can't be there in person.
Okay. And I'm glad Bob watched it. I didn't know that happened. Sylvia,
You know who, what's her name, came to our meetup on Thursday night? Danita, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
I love her.
Good.
Yeah.
What a fascinating person she is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She tell you all about the training and experiences that she's had?
Yeah.
No.
She keeps the group going for sure.
How is the Thursday ones? Everybody coming to that?
Yeah, it's whoever can come comes. So last week Danita was there, and John and Ronnie came down for it.
Mm-hmm.
Ronnie even attended, huh?
Ronnie even attended, and now I see why he doesn't normally, because he does take over the conversation. You can't get a word in edgewise. It was tough.
Yeah.
Okay. And then more people. You made it. Let's see, Barb made it.
Sylvia, Bob.
Yeah. Robert.
Yep. John. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you guys cover?
Robert was there. Yeah.
What was your question?
What'd you guys cover?
State.
And everything Ronnie wanted to talk about.
Right. He tried politics. He tried sports. He tried.
Okay.
It was a good group, although we weren't on state the majority, a lot of the group. part of it we'd come back to it and stuff. But, you know, with Ronnie and Danita having such wonderful different stories and experiences and insights to share, it was great to have them there, but we didn't totally stay on track of what we were there for. You know what I mean? But it was still a learning meetup and a good one.
Okay, good. Well, I won't take too much time. What we're looking at doing here is Metaprograms. We'll finish this up probably in like the next 2 weeks, I'm thinking. And then what my thoughts are is to go into some sleight of mouth, if you guys are interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's some Robert Dilts patterns. Those are some fascinating things to do on people. It's not that you're confused. It's just that you're interested and still want to learn more.
It's not that you're confused.
Very simple one for you.
I like that.
But yeah, so I've been enjoying these, and it's Monday morning for me, so I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
Well, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure.
All right.
Yeah.
Everybody take care. We'll see you next
week.
week on Thursday or Sunday.
Okay.
Bye,
Bye.
Becky.
Have a good
Bye, guys.